I start the recording, and I'll just be a minute or so while I'm looking for something to talk about.
Attackers
Yeah.
incoming. Defend objective A.
Let's get to work.
Bad guys.
Fixing you up.
Allow me to repair the damage.
Shield holding.
Okay.
I need to
Good block on that
Get it
hook.
My barrier.
All right. So here we kind of peek, right? And then rather than like whip shotting, we just kind of peek and shield, right? So that peek really didn't accomplish anything but like pull, break our shield there, right? And then we get hooked as a result. So if we're going to peek that corner, that needs to be with a whip shot because we're looking to just proc our inspire. And then that's what the objective of the peek should be rather than just peeking to peek because that didn't really accomplish anything besides just break your cooldown or your shield, right? And then now we don't have it, which means that we do end up dying there in that situation. Also would recommend, like here when we do get hooked by the Roadhog, to like whip shot him away from you. This will proc your Inspire, right? Procking your Inspire just means activating it, right? Getting it going, because that'll get you self-healing. Here we don't even touch Hog, and then that means that we're not self-healing, and then that's probably going to affect our survivability here. And then it also can get him further away from us so that he can't follow up with a second shot, right? So, yeah, there we kind of just the reason why we die is because we peek unnecessarily and don't really do anything with the peek.
Yeah, I was actually the reason why I was shooting to the left specifically was because I just saw that McCree got one bang by the Hanzo, and I didn't want to get the same fate.
Yeah, so in that case, then like not even peeking at all is the way to go. Or like even if you're looking to just get whip shots into proc inspire, then maybe going off of the single hog who's on the right, who you can dodge a little bit easier rather than the 4 people on the left who might do a lot more damage to you, right?
That's a good shout. This was actually a point where Hanzo was chasing me. If you go back a little bit, he was shooting me from far away. I was hiding and calling for my team to help me to bail me out here because he was actually a good shot.
Currently you do not need a bailout because we have bash. We can just bash across that gap here, right? Or you could even just look his direction and shield across, right? Because we do have
My
our
shield was just broken though.
no, it is not. You have shield currently.
Oh no, I have regenerated already. That's my bad.
So yeah, so you have shield, you have bash. So here we should be able to just do that, and then that probably saves us here.
Objective lost.
All right, and then that ends up actually getting us staggered.
Yeah.
Patching you up. Barriers on you.
Okay, so I've seen like 2 or 3 of these, so we're gonna comment on it for the moment. Watch overhealing. So overhealing is any time that you attempt to heal somebody when they're already full HP or very, very close to full HP, and you're in the middle of a fight. Now, of course, if you're in between fights, you can get people up to full HP, but if you're in the middle of a fight and you heal somebody who's already full HP, well then it's literally doing absolutely nothing, and you just end up wasting the cooldown, and even beyond wasting the cooldown, which you have a limited amount of, and that's going to mean that now you actually can't heal other people who might actually need it. That now means that you're also wasting time as well, which really adds up over the course of the game if you spend a lot of time wasting a lot of wasted overheal packs, right? So the other thing is when people are very close to full HP, it can be kind of the same thing. So if Reinhardt is like 480 HP, do you really need to put a pack on Reinhardt when that's realistically going to get him 20 HP worth of health? And you could be doing other things like looking for other people to heal, putting in a whip shot, looking to reposition, looking to use shield, right? Just so many different things we could be doing with that time that probably doesn't need to be wasted putting a pack on Reinhardt, which also wastes the pack, right? So here, we'll go back. I'll show, you can see it again. So here, look at Reinhardt's HP when we try to pack him here, right? Bubbled, full HP, down like maybe like 30 HP, and that's just not your job when it comes to the pack. That would be something to just like let Moira top him off of.
There's also a ball flying right towards him as well. A Moira heal ball. That should have just gotten it. Yeah.
And then I saw that a little bit like previously as well, and that means that we're just I'm also noticing that we're coming into fights with no packs, right? That's also another important thing is like pack management. Of course, we can't always control this. Like, there's going to be sometimes where we just need the healing. But in a lot of cases, whenever possible, we want to be starting the fight and engaging the fight with, if possible, 2 to 3 packs, right? But during both of these last 2 fights, we've started the fight. Like, the fight, I would say, is starting like right about now, right? The ults are popping, the tanks are on top of each other, right? The pick is happening, right? This is the start of the fight, like right around now, maybe like 3 seconds ago, right?
Yeah.
And by the time the fight is beginning, we don't have any packs whatsoever, which means that now the time where people are actually going to need the most healing because the most damage is happening, we have no healing available, right? And this happened in the last fight as well. So we want to make sure that in between fights, we're doing our best to hold on to our packs. Now, a good rule of thumb is that like you can fire off 1 pack right when it's needed, because you can just let that regenerate, and then that gives you 2 to work with if you need it. So feel free to like, and then once that comes back, then you can use it again. So try to work with like 1 pack, and then if you need it, then you can go for more. Does that kind of all make sense?
That does make a lot of sense. I've been noticing that actually. I've used the old break where she only had 1 heal pack and the overhealing was
Yeah,
converted into armor.
exactly.
And
Yep,
I've still yet to break out of that mold.
exactly.
Feeling better?
Bash him there. In that situation, probably can just like full up stop his ultimate, right? Like, and he's close enough to your Reinhardt where you can probably like walk forwards, bash him, and then just like be back on your Reinhardt pretty quickly. So I'd go for that. That'd probably just stop his ultimate, like give your team that stops him from doing a lot of damage and pushing your team backwards as well. Now also going for whip shot, also we just push him further away, make him harder to do anything. One thing I am noticing is that we're not proccing Inspire at all, right? We're not going for whip shots regularly. Your whip shots, you should be basically whip shotting off of cooldown. So pretty much, unless, of course, like you're in danger or something like that, you should basically be throwing out whip shot every single time it comes off a cooldown, because you want to be able to get your Inspire going, right, which will give you continuous healing throughout a fight. So you can do this while you're poking, you can do this during the fight, but so far we just haven't been doing it. Like, we could go back to the last fight and we were like doing a little bit, not a ton. This fight, notice how like the fight's all happening and we're not, we haven't used whip shot. No whip shot, no whip shot, right? 5 seconds later, no whip shot, no whip shot, right? And then we're dead at that point, right? So we didn't really use whip shot, so Inspire's not going. We didn't actually get any damage in. We didn't swing on anything. We didn't bash at all, and we also misused our ability. So in this fight, we can be maybe like thinking, did we really accomplish anything? Were we really having any impact? And then therefore, if the answer to that is no, well, then that's our impact on losing the fight, is having a lack of impact, right?
Yeah, I see what you're saying. I wasn't thinking about it that much, but I remember earlier days I was really good at whip shotting every time. But I don't. I actually, now that you mention it, I do notice how little I do it these days.
Yep. And it's going to be coming off of, it's a very short ability, so it'll be coming off of cooldown around the time that you need to get the Inspire runs out, right? And then that means it just is continuous.
Yeah.
Ready. 1. Attackers in.
And that's when I decided to go for Zen, because I wanted to be able to avoid the Hanzo sidelines while not being completely without effect on the fight.
Okay.
This will heal the pain.
Be one with the universe.
All right. Noticing a lot of sitting around there. So just at the very beginning of the fight, so we'll talk a little bit about actions per minute, and this is a little bit applicable to our Brig as well. So actions per minute is basically how much are we doing with our time? Are we accomplishing things? Are we doing things very actively? So if you were to compare a Grandmaster player to a Bronze player, right, with exceptions, a Grandmaster player is going to be pretty much effective in doing things with like every single second of their time, whereas a Bronze player is going to be in the fight, in the middle of the fight, and they're going to go pew pew shoot shoot 5-10 seconds, and then they're going to randomly take a pause and a break for 10 seconds, and then they'll go, oh yeah, I'm in a fight, and they'll go pew pew shoot shoot, and then they'll get distracted by the scenery and walk off, and stop shooting. So here, notice how we come into the fight and we're just not really shooting, right? So we come in, we plop an orb, we shoot once, we sit here, we charge a right click, and then we shoot into the wall, right? And then we sit here, we peek for an orb, and then we back up, and we're not shooting, we shoot twice, and then we're back to not shooting, we plop an orb, and we're sitting here, and we're sitting here, and we're sitting here, we charge up a right click, we fire it in, right? So now we're doing stuff, and we sit here, we're plopping an orb, alright, plopping an orb, right? So it's
So
good.
for the most part, I see exactly what you're saying. At the end there, I noticed that we already dropped 2 people,
Yep.
and at that point, me peeking just makes me more likely to
Yeah,
target.
so it's not so after you lose the people, right? So here we lose a person, 2 people, right? You don't necessarily need to peek. Here we can be backing up. The idea is that we still shooting at like Roadhog when he peeks and whatnot. So like there, after we're down 2 people, we can probably be just backing, right? So that at that point, that's fine, right? We should honestly even be further back here because of how many people were down. But the idea is that we're not shooting, and Zenyatta as a character, you think of it because Zenyatta doesn't have active healing where like almost every other support, right? Almost every other support, Ana, Bap, Moira, right? You have to press a button to heal, right? Zenyatta doesn't really have that. He plops his orb on something and he's done, right? He has his Transcendence, which also does that, but that's it. He throws an orb out, he trances when it comes up, that's it. Zenyatta therefore is like 80% damage, right, with his kit. That doesn't mean that he is statistically outputting 80% of damage and 20% of healing. That's not what I'm talking about. Time-wise that you're dedicating to each, time-wise that you're dedicating to damage, time-wise that you're dedicating to healing, Zenyatta is spending like 80% of his gameplay doing damage, 20% of his gameplay reapplying orbs using Transcendence, right? So there during that fight, it was more like 70%, 75% healing, applying heal orbs, and then 25% damage, right? Which just isn't the kind of how much we want to be doing things. So definitely recommend shooting much more often. It'll get you more value. You'll be getting kills, doing damage, which will ultimately lead to more ultimates, and more kills will lead to more fight wins. So overall, doing more damage is going to be very helpful for you.
Get into position.
Right, so like even now, so like here before even Dragon starts being popped, right, we're backing off to this like really right side. Like even before Dragon's coming, we're backing off into this corner. We also don't even need to be this far away from the Dragon at the moment. We could be pushed up to up here so that as the moment Dragon runs out, we're able to push forwards and do things. We're just sitting really, really far back and not really accomplishing a ton again from here. Okay. Make sure that you're reapplying your Discord orb to whatever you're shooting at. If you're shooting at something different, you should basically have your Discord orb on that thing. So here, Zarya's like not really even near us right now, and we're shooting at the Roadhog. Discord orb probably should be on Roadhog. Yeah. I think you have a pretty good sense of right click versus left click usage of when you're using both of them, so that's good. Here we turn this corner and we do a very slow pan, so that's where I see we need to talk about crosshair placement a little bit. So I'm not sure, I'll mention it here, but I'm not sure if I noticed the first thing here applying, but the second thing we're going to talk about definitely does apply. So crosshair placement, if you're unfamiliar with it, is just placing your crosshair in the best place possible to hit the easiest shots, right? The first major step to this, not seeing a massive problem with, but just mentioning it because it's part of this, and that is you want to be aiming at head level, right? You want to be walking around aiming here if you can hit headshots. If you can't hit headshots, aim body level. But if you can hit headshots, you want to be hitting headshots because they do basically 2 times damage, right? Which is very valuable for you in hitting shots, right? When you aim at body level, you're shooting down a corridor, you're shooting into people, you just naturally hit body shots. But if you aim at head level, now you just naturally hit headshots as you're shooting down here, just because you're aiming at that level. So we want to aim there whenever possible. Now the second step to crosshair placement is the one I noticed there that you were lacking a little bit, and that is aiming where we know people are going to be. That means that when we know this bot's on the top right, and he's going in the left room, right? We can be expecting to come out, so we're pre-aiming at head level, so that when he comes around the corner, we're already aiming at his head, right? Or we know he's left side here. We're gonna be, rather than coming and slowly doing a turnaround, right, and doing a slow pan, we want to be coming out here already looking on this left side, right? So we can just hit those headshots the moment we turn the corner, right? Same concept here. These guys are on a slope, so the same way we look down on a torb and up on a tank, we're going to look down here on these guys. So when we turn this corner, already aiming straight at their head. Very easy shots to land because I already have our crosshair on them. So what happened in the replay, which I'll go back and show you in a moment, and I also saw this at another point too, is we're going to come and we basically could see that they were all around this corner on the right, and we do like a very slow pan and then end up shooting into this wall right here, right? When we knew that they're all over here and we can see that there's nobody here, we still have our crosshair right here rather than over here, right? So we're gonna go back and we're gonna look at that so you can see it.
I
One
do
moment.
think that game I performed pretty poorly, but I think my decision making on the hero selection was better in this one. That's the reason why I picked this one, because I do think that this Zen I do swap off of it eventually was pretty bad.
Mm-hmm. All right, so look at this right here where we see them run right side, right? We know the right side. We can see on our screen that there's nobody here, right? If you were to compare your crosshair right now to everybody on there on then, we're also not aiming head level, right? And then look at where this, rather than coming out, and we should right now be aiming like right through this crack here, right, as we're turning the corner, but instead we're shooting into the cart, right? So we want to make sure crosshair placement wise we're aiming up a little bit more, and we're aiming where we know they are, right? That is another term for that is pre-aiming, aiming where we know that they're going to be coming from, right? Because we saw them all go right side, we can see that there's nobody there, so our crosshair probably wants to be hugging that right side more.
Yeah, I have problems with that in every shooter these days. I'm still trying to work on it.
Yep. Okay, noticing a little bit of maybe an over-reliance on a right click. Left click should be happening pretty much anytime that you're able to see people and shoot at them because it's more consistent. That also means that we have a slight preference for our left click because it is more consistent. So that means that we don't want to just be sitting, right click, sitting, right click, sitting, right click, if we have the ability to just peek and go left click, left click, left click, left click, left click, because that's going to actually open up for more damage, more consistent damage, more ability to actually secure kills, rather than the inconsistent bursts, which of course is not a bad thing. Like if you were already running up here, so like let's say you're coming around this corner, then you want that right click, but you don't want to be constantly going for that right click because it's less consistent damage. So if you have your tanks creating space for you and peeking for you, come out and start left clicking rather than just like sitting in the back spam right clicking, just because it's gonna be a lot more effective. Okay. Watch the danger. So two things here, right? So firstly, Transcendence typically has a couple conditions, right? So you use Transcendence when you or your teammates are low and in danger, not one or the other, right? So that means that, and there's a difference between the two, right? I can be critical HP and sitting over here, and I am in no danger whatsoever because I am very far away from the enemy team, right?
Yeah.
And I can be full HP and standing maybe like right here and be in a lot more damage, or sorry, a lot more danger, where Zarya, Roadhog, and Ana can all shoot at me for free, right? And be full HP still. And in that case, right, in the case over here, Transcendence is not needed because they're not in danger. And in this case, Transcendence is not needed because they're not down HP at all, right? They're not, Trans only does healing, so how is it going to get value if they're full HP, right? So
Yeah.
the two conditions there are low and in danger, right? And then the other thing preference is multiple people, right? Usually you want multiple people to be low in danger. Though that makes up the best chances is when it is multiple people. It can be solo people, but preferably not. Now here in the situation, Reinhardt is low. Is Reinhardt in danger?
But his shield was cracked. That's why I popped it for him, so that as soon as Nate comes off, I can full heal him and then move on to the Hog and the Moira on the right,
Okay.
who are also low.
So shield is half HP currently, right?
Yeah.
Which, and then also the other thing which we are gonna get into in a moment is that it's a 6v3, right? So
Oh, I did not notice that myself. No.
yep. So this gets into how do you tell whether or not you are winning or losing a fight, right? And the main bulk of that comes down to watching kill feed, because kill feed tells you when you're up and down people. You can see it at any point of the game, anywhere on the map, where you see the kill feed. Kill feed when you are up or down 1 to 2 people, that is an advantage or a disadvantage, right? You're going to play more aggressively when you have advantages, play more passively when you have disadvantages. Now, when you are up or down 2 to 3 people, that is a won or a lost fight. At that point, when you have won a fight, you play really aggressive and you go in and get the stagger kills on them. And when you are down 2 to 3 people, that means that it's lost and you are going to look to get out if possible. And if you cannot get out, you let them kill you because you don't want to stagger yourself. Now, the other thing is that when you've won or lost a fight, you do not want to be using ultimates. Because if you've already won the fight, then that means that your ultimate is not going to make a difference. It's not needed. It's overkill. When you've already lost the fight, that means that your ultimate's not going to change the fact that you lost. Therefore, don't ultimate. Right? You want to save it for the next fight. So in this situation where it's currently a 3v6. This is very much a one fight, in which case Transcendence isn't needed. Maybe even if Reinhardt was low, right, and in danger. And in this case, I would say he's definitely not in danger because he has half of his shield. Is going to be getting healing here as soon as the purple ends. The Zarya and the Roadhog are in front of him, and in fact, the Roadhog's not even looking at the Reinhardt currently, right? So there's a lot. I would say there's a lot of factors that say Reinhardt is currently not in danger. He's also very close to cover, right? So like you can be thinking to yourself, by the time he moves around this, is his 700 HP on his shield going to be gone, right? My answer would be no. That's not gonna happen, right? So in this situation, Reinhardt's not he's not in danger, and the fight's already heavily won, which means that Transcendence ultimately in this situation just gets wasted. Does that all make sense?
Yeah, it does.
Oh, we're in third person. Whoopsie.
This will heal you.
Probably would recommend taking that top right high ground. So high ground. Why don't we take a moment to just go over general positioning real quick? Because I noticed a couple times where we didn't respect some general positioning. So let's review that a little bit.
True
So
is
go ahead.
without form.
The Hanzo was constantly hogging the top right of that field, and I know he was a good shot. Again, I think I played way too scared of the Hanzo because that's why I didn't go up there.
Yeah, so first, I don't think from what I saw there that he was actively up there when I mentioned it. Otherwise, I probably would say, "Oh, you're good. You were probably a little bit good." I might even say though, go and duel the Hanzo, right? So think about this for a moment, right? GM Hanzos, right, or top 500 or pro Hanzos. Those are good Hanzos, right? And they're good shots.
Yeah.
Okay. Do you ever see a professional Zenyatta do you see them playing scared and running away and never contesting the enemy Hanzo?
No,
If they're
but
good shot?
I remember that they actually went and fought them most of the time.
Yeah. So just because somebody's a good shot doesn't mean that you don't, you just don't try to exist, right? So
In comparison to my own aim, which I think is pretty bad.
Yeah, so I'd say it like this, right? So, if you play passive, right, and you play scared, you can be the most survivable person in the game if you sit and spawn and never do anything, but are you accomplishing anything? Are you winning the game? Answer is no, right?
No.
Now, you can, of course, you want to have a balance here where you don't want to sprint in and die every single fight. Of course, you don't want to be doing that. That's, of course, a bad thing. But if you're sitting around and not accomplishing things, then that's a big problem, right? So you can't play super safe, right? Because if you play only for safety, you miss out on productivity. And if you focus only on productivity, you might end up missing out on safety, right? So you need to balance the two of those. So in our gameplay, we're focusing too much on the safety aspect, not the productivity aspect, right? Now we'll
Yeah.
talk about a little bit of the product or the safety as well here in a moment when we're talking about positioning. The other thing I would mention is that you're not going to be able to work on your dueling and your aim if you never take engagements where you need to put that into practice, right? If you
That's
never go ahead.
that's a good shout. Yeah.
Yep,
I'll get better if I don't do it.
exactly, right? Like if you never ever press trance and you never press Q and never ever use trance and your trances are bad, how are your chances going to get better, right? Type of
Yeah.
idea. So you want to put yourself in those situations so you can learn how to duel. One other thing I might recommend: do you currently do a warm up before you start playing?
I do quick play before I start playing. Yeah.
I might recommend, rather than quick play, go and do triad free for all. Triad free for all is just a very excellent way to warm up and practice at your mechanics. That means that there's going to be no teammates to worry about. That means you're not going to be focused on healing at all. There's no, you don't really have to focus on your trance usage. You're not going to have objectives to worry about. It really focuses in on your mechanics and your dueling and your ability to execute those. So it really focuses in on those while also giving you a very fast-paced active warm-up, right? What you typically you want a warm-up to just be very fast-paced to get your blood pumping and get your arm moving and getting into it, right? So I'd recommend that. Sometimes, depending on how long your queue time is, you might even be able to just queue up and then do that while you're in queue as well,
Yeah.
right? So that would be my recommendation. That'll definitely help you as you're working on like how do I actually duel people. Whereas quick play, we just have a lot of extra distractions to worry about within that, right?
Yeah. That sounds good. Yeah.
So
that's just like the deathmatch queue you can enter when you are in a queue.
yeah, you try hard. So you can do deathmatch, but I'd also probably recommend try hard deathmatch, which is in a custom games.
It's in custom games. Okay, I was
yeah.
wondering because I didn't know about that.
Yep. So if you go to custom games and you just search up Triad, there's almost always one active and running. If there's not, then you can look for something else. Like other ones I might recommend are, I guess for Zenyatta, I guess maybe there's not a ton for Zenyatta then. And then you can probably do just a deathmatch or something like that, which is fine. But Triad deathmatch is like they're actively trying in that deathmatch, and they remove some characters that might not be very fun to play against in that mode, and maybe sometimes abilities, and they add in some extra cool stuff. So usually it's a lot more competitive of an environment than just regular deathmatch.
Something to try out for sure.
Yep. So moving on. So let's talk about positioning real quick. So firstly, if I'm standing right here and the enemy team is standing over there, and they're all shooting at me and looking at me, it takes me 1, 2, 3 seconds to get behind cover, right? Now from here, I cannot get shot at. You cannot shoot through solid objects. But in that time it took me to walk here, I ended up dying, right? Whereas when I'm right here, well, now I can do the same stuff, except for now it takes me half a second to duck behind cover, which is 6 times faster than what it just took me previously. So therefore, good positioning is a usage of cover, standing near it and actively using it, versus bad positioning is the absence of cover when we're out in the open, right? And I noticed a couple times where, for example, we let's say this was like the choke point, right? Let's say it was something like this. Let's just say this, right? Whereas the choke point, we kind of did this where we just randomly walked across, right? Went from right side to left side, and I'm going, why are we leaving cover when we could just sit here and use cover, right? That sort of idea. And there's cover all over the place, right? You have slopes like so, you have pillars to work with in between shots when you're reloading, when you're low, when you're being shot at. You have corners to use, you have random objects sitting around like so. The payload does this. Pillar, corner, doorway, corner, and then on top of all of that, the high ground also acts as natural cover, pretty much the whole thing. Right? If we're standing here, they can see us, now they can't. See us, Now they can't, right? So the high ground all acts as natural cover. Additionally, high ground also makes it so that most characters in the game can actually reach you. 2/3 need to take the stairs to get to you, and then the other third that can, they need to use abilities, which means that now they're out of abilities, which all gives us increased survivability, which will allow us to stay alive longer. And then on top of that, we're going to have really good visibility from up here. We can see over here, and over there, and over there, over here, and over there. But when we're on a low ground, we can't see over there, or any of the high ground, right? So high ground, fantastic. Covers, fantastic. Any questions? Does that all make sense?
No, I actually learned all that for Winston, but I don't know why I never applied it to Zen, really.
Yep, applies. That's why it's general positioning. That all that information applies to like every character in the game.
Yeah.
Pretty much.
But as I was doing that, that's how I got a lot better at Winston, by learning to abuse downtimes and stuff, setting up in better positions. But I don't know, I just didn't really consider that for Zen.
Yep, definitely recommend it.
Represent
Traveling to Volskaya.
See, I knew this was going to be worth it.
Well,
Getting
I'm
so much
glad.
into this.
I'm glad it's worth it so far. All right, so here I believe we were right here. So here, noting, like this is where I'm talking about like probably taking high ground because Hanzo's not currently on high ground, and this would just give us good survivability along with good angles to work with, right? We can see pretty much the whole entirety of the fight. We can shoot at people from up here very easily. We have cover to work with, right? So all of which would probably make taking top right pretty snazzy, pretty good idea. Right, and then also we're kind of lagging behind our team over there. So now we don't even have line of sight on our team. All right. So then, noticing one thing we might talk about. All right, so we're gonna talk about like two different things here. So firstly, just some efficiency stuff. I'd like to see us just spam shooting more often. So like just on Zenyatta, you should be just basically constantly holding on left click when you're in a fight, just constantly doing damage. We already discussed this a little bit, but the thing I'm noticing is that whenever we apply orbs, like we go for a Discord or Harmony, we'll go pew pew shoot shoot, and then we'll take a couple seconds to pause and apply the orb, and then we'll start shooting again. Whereas you can just be holding down the left click while you're applying orb and just continue to be shooting, right? Like I can do this, right? And a very easy way to do this is just walk in behind them, so we can actually apply while we're shooting, right? We can apply that orb. But the other thing is that we can just look over at them real quick, apply it, and then get back to shooting, right? So I can go pew pew shoot shoot, orb, pew pew shoot shoot, shoot shoot, orb, pew pew shoot shoot. Same thing with Discord. I'm just playing it on whatever I'm shooting at, but I'm noticing like there's a lot of downtime where we'll go pew pew shoot shoot. Oh, I have to orb this person, slowly look over at them, place orb, slowly look back, right? And then we start get shooting again. So there's like a second, I'd say maybe like around approximately a second of delay like every time we apply an orb, which just leads to less efficiency. So that's the first thing I noticed. Now the other thing we're going to go over here is
I'll actually admit something pretty embarrassing. I did not know you can use your orbs while continuing to fire.
Yep. But you can 100% do that. Like Discord, you can just keep on shooting. You can do it while I'm shooting at them, right? And then
Actually, I didn't know that. That's why you always see me apply Discord after I just fired a burst kind of thing.
Yeah. So right click, you can't actually do it while you're charging it up, right? So I can't.
No, but like also while pinging.
Yeah. So right click, you can't do it while you're charging it up, but you can do it at like the very end of the release. So if you're far away from somebody, notice how I can't do it right now, but I'm just like spamming it. Like at the very end of this, I will throw the orb in there, right? So if I am just holding it down, right, or spamming it or whatever, right, it'll apply the orb in there like halfway through, which will add extra damage. So even when right clicking, you still want to be trying the orb, right? And then I can right click, and then at the very end of that right click, it applies the orb because I'm just kind of spamming it on them. Yep. So that's some important stuff to know. Yeah, gonna get you a little bit faster.
No, I didn't know that. You had a second point. Sorry, I interrupted you.
Yeah, you're good. I'm actually trying to remember what was the second point that I was gonna go for. Wait, so we were in the. Oh yeah, okay, I remember. So we are going to go over target priority. Like, who should you be shooting at in these fights, right? Like, who do you want to be actively shooting at? The answer to target priority typically is you shoot at the easiest people to kill, because those are going to be the people you can actually kill easily, right?
Yeah.
Typically, the easiest things to kill are not tanks. Tanks have 2 to 3 times the health of other characters. They have shields, they have tanking abilities, they have armor. A lot of them have high mobility. They're very difficult characters to kill, the most difficult characters in the game to kill. And so far in these fights I've seen, we spend like 80% of the game shooting at tanks, right? Which just isn't maybe our preference, because that's not going to be the easy things to kill. Now, that's not to say that we never shoot at tanks. We shoot at them when they're low, when they're out of position, when they're the only thing we can shoot at, right? So like if there's a tank sitting in our face or on top of us, or we don't really have an option to get around them, then shooting at them is fine. But if you have the option to get around the tanks, or you have equal opportunity, then you shoot at something else. So equal opportunity would mean tank is here, squishy's here. Why would I shoot at tank when I can just shoot at the squishy, right? So that's equal opportunity. And we've seen maybe some examples of that where we shoot at the tank anyways. And then the other thing is you want to actively seek out the squishy targets, right? The DPS and the supports. And even within DPS and supports, you have a hierarchy, right? Like, who's going to be easier to kill, a Tracer or an Ana?
Ana.
Ana.
100%.
Yeah. Who's going to be easier to kill, a Hanzo or a Lucio?
Hanzo, because he has limited, maybe more vertical mobility, but still Hanzo, I'd say.
Yep, exactly, right? So even within those characters, you have a hierarchy. Now, how you can actively get over to those characters is, firstly, it's just actively looking at them and seeking them out. But the way that you can seek them out is by doing what you call off angles. So if the enemy team is there, and our team is here, and this is the main angle, this is where everybody's shooting through, right? You're gonna have shields in front of you and tanks, which we just discussed are like not the things you want to be looking at. But if we just walk over to the side here real quick, well, now we can charge up right click and come through here and just shoot squishies in the head for free, right? We just got around all those obstacles and just got straight to their back line, all while being very safe and it being very fast. It did not take us very long to do this, right? Now, on top, there's another example would be like enemy team, our team, main angle. We apply some orbs, we take a moment here, we run around up top. Right now we've just gone around every single obstacle straight to their back line, right? And all high grounds act as natural off angles as long as they're below us. If they're like a mile away, like all the way over there, then shields can still and tanks can still block us. But if we're above them, they can't, right? So off angles are fantastic. They're going to be around like 50% of the time-ish, right? So take them when they're there and look to use them so you can actually get to the things you want to shoot at. So an example would be like in that last fight game that we're in, we are shooting at down the main angle at the hog the entire fight, whereas if we took that top right high ground, well, now that puts us in a position where we can probably shoot at some other things a lot easier, right, than sitting down main. One thing I would make sure that you're aware of is that there is a difference between off-angling and flanking. If we have this exact same scenario, right, flanking would be if we did this and we went all the way around. So flanking takes a lot longer. Flanking is a lot more dangerous for you. So that, now we're done our flank. That just took us like twice as long, 3 times as long. Puts us out of the fight for a lot longer, and then once we're here, we're in a lot more danger, which means we're a lot more likely to die. Zenyatta very rarely should be flanking. Sometimes he can flank, very rarely though. So almost never should you be going on the flank. And then, yeah, that's pretty much it. Off angle's good, flank's bad. Pretty much.
No, I get that much.
Yep.
Thankfully, that's one thing that I don't think I'm doing particularly poorly at, like not flanking with Zen.
Yep.
But...
Yep.
The more and more I listen to all this advice, and this is all really good stuff, the more I feel like I'm playing much too afraid of whichever enemy seems to plink at me the most towards the start of the game. Where it kind of sets me up for the rest of the game where I try to do everything I can to avoid them.
Yeah.
And to avoid getting targeted by them.
Yep, which just, like we said, maybe isn't super productive. So here, like, we just spend the entire fight shooting at the hog, whereas, like, let's say we take this. Well, now we can shoot at Hanzo, and we can shoot at Baptiste, and we can shoot at Ana, right? We have a lot more targets to look at. Now, hog here is a little far forward, so maybe we could shoot at hog, but it really just, we end up spending way too much time on the hog, because we spend this, like, whole time shooting at him.
Yeah.
clutch bubble.
Yeah, it was.
My ultimate is almost ready.
Make sure we're reloading when we just kind of have nothing to shoot at. That way we have ammo for when we need it. Good shots there. Shoot a Hanzo. Yeah, there you go. Alright, good chance to bail yourself out. That's a fine usage of it because you want to just be here in the fight, and you knew you were gonna die if you didn't.
Oh yeah.
All right. Now you did end up actually capping it, in time, but we also like were not paying attention to the hog at all there.
No, I
And,
did
like,
not hear him woke up, even
yeah.
though the footsteps have become a lot louder, but I don't know, I just missed them still a
Yeah.
lot.
Audio settings to go over real quick. Sound settings, I'd recommend turning up your master volume if you do not have it turned. If you don't feel like you have it loud enough. Music volume, I'd recommend turning off or low because usually that just clutters with your audio. And then I would check to see if you have surround sound as an option enabled on your headset. If it is not an option to enable, then go to in-game and turn on Dolby Atmos for headphones. This is going to give you sound that surrounds you and actually allow you to hear people around you better. Now,
So
yeah, go on.
there's actually a little problem with this, and this is a medical related issue. I am
Oh.
partially deaf on the right side, and I have very much problems trying to figure out the direction the noise is coming from.
Okay, so that
That's why you
that's
see me looking around sometimes when I hear footsteps of the ash, I think, when we were at the choke, and I was looking at it like, where the hell is that coming from? Because that ash to the left of me and heard to the right of me.
yeah.
And that's a directional issue that, has nothing to do with anything else, but that's just,
Yeah, 100% fair. So in those cases, right, when you hear something, look in the places where they could be coming from, right? So here, for example, right, where let's say you hear Hog's footsteps, but you have like no clue where the heck he is. He only has three. He could only be coming from 3 places. Right side, which we already say he's not, right? So then we only have 2 places to look: left and up, right? If he's up, we back up, whatever. If he's left, we see him, we back up. So when you kind of pair together the audio and the visual, you want to have a little bit more. If you can't listen with your ears super well, put a little bit more of a heavy reliance on your visual. Make sure you're looking around more often, right? Not just staring in one direction, but looking left, right, doing 360s, right? Checking your surroundings, and then that gives you it kind of makes up for the lack in audio. Because I know there are people who play this game who are completely deaf, right? And I think there's there's a streamer who's completely deaf who plays like at a GM level. I think even hit top 500, right?
That's actually huge.
Yep.
That
So
is, man.
yeah, it's pretty cool, and it's because you put more of a you make up for it by paying attention with your eyes, right?
Yeah.
So that just be recommendations. The other thing is just make sure actively paying attention to your audio, right, with your good ear, making sure that you're actively listening for footsteps and gunshots and ultimates and abilities, and that way you can actually react and hear them much sooner. The other thing I would mention is you should not be this far up. So when you're about to cap point, right, you're very, very close to capping. Where's the one place the enemy team needs to go?
Well, to the point.
To the point.
And
So
right there in the way of the point, so they're just easily pinging off.
So that makes it the most dangerous place for you to be standing, right? Additionally, right, we're sitting here. We can only shoot down this right here. Whereas like what if they come right side? What if they come above us? And whereas when we're back here, we have visibility over the entirety of point, and it's much safer as well, right? So positioning wise, you should probably be on this back half of point because that gives us the safest positioning as well as the best line of sight as well. So if good. Were you gonna say something?
No, nothing else. That was just that. Makes sense.
All right.
Defend objective A.
The greatest enemy.
This will heal you.
And noting that we're lagging slightly behind our team, right? This is just time where we could be using the spam, right? Like we're just kind of sitting, chilling.
In the shadow of doubt.
I was very active in audio here, warning the Hanzo that their Hanzo was coming to fight him as well, and I was supporting him from behind. And he got him. It's good. Like, that is one thing that I don't think the replays show off enough. The audio communication is quite high in some of these games where I actively are playing and communicating with the team, which
yeah.
is helping me get victories sometimes.
Yeah, here, make sure that you're like charging a break like a little bit earlier, so that you're not firing 2 orbs at them. You're firing 5 at them, right?
Yeah.
Assistance would be
Okay, good cover usage. Make sure you're plopping those orbs on people. We currently don't have a heal orb on anybody. Good shots.
Revenge is not justice.
This is going to hurt.
I was so upset.
That looks very jerky of movement. Trying to think. What sensitivity and DPI do you have your mouse set?
It's another one of those things where like I actually don't accurately know because I have a Logitech mouse and it automatically adjusts my sensitivity for Overwatch, and I don't want it to do that. And I've been struggling to find a new good sensitivity spot for it, like in the game.
Okay.
So that's still a work in progress.
Okay. So do you know? Can you like check what your DPI is at?
So
You should be able to check that in the Logitech settings.
Yeah, it's a 1200 on the lowest speed. And it turns to 2400 as soon as I click on Overwatch. I can see that now.
Oh, so you click on Overwatch and then it bumps your DPI up to 2400?
Yeah.
Okay.
And in game is 1959. I think for Zen's might be different. No, for Zen it's also 1959.
Okay.
So about 20 times that, which is I guess too much.
So, let me give you a reference point. So my EDPI, so that is taking your sensitivity and timesing it by your DPI, right, which gives you your total, both of them combined, right? Mine is 3600, right? And that I would say is a relatively average lower end of sensitivity. Now, yours is 47,000. Right, so that means that 47,000 divided by 3,600 would mean that you have 13 times my sensitivity. So when I do 1 360, you do 13 360s. Right?
I'm just struggling with this because I actually adjust my DPI on the fly in the game, and I notice that it is bumped up again. Whereas like I get really annoyed and like swap it back. But even with 1200 times 20 is still too much.
Yeah, even 1200 would probably still be really high. So my recommendation would go ahead.
So what would you recommend then, like with 1200 and what sensitivity?
So you want to be going for I would say that anything that's on the high end of sensitivities, you do not want to be going for. You want to have a medium to low end sensitivity because most of the community agrees that lower sensitivities are going to be better for you. Firstly, you want to make sure that you have a decent sized mouse pad. If you have a really small mouse pad, you're not going to have enough space to work with if you lower your sensitivity. Yep, so that's good. Now I'd recommend, so if you're keeping the 1200 DPI and you got rid of the you can probably go and just turn that off, the ability for it to swap between them. Just like I'd go and check that out, look into the settings, look it up if you need to.
Yeah, I'm gonna do now. Yeah.
In game, so a good reference point to start thinking about is you want to be able to do at a very minimum 1 full 360 from left to right of your mouse pad. So that means that if I go in game here, right, and I take my mouse and I put it on the on the left side of my mouse space, not necessarily your whole mouse pad because I have a mouse pad that goes across my entire desk, but my mouse space that I use, right, I can look right at the bot here, place my mouse on the left, drag it all the way to the right side, and then this is around where I end up, right? So just a little bit over a 360. Now what that means is that I'm able to on both, if I start my mouse off in the middle, I can do a 180 pretty much either side, right? I can do a 180, which means that I have the ability to make proper turns. So that's a very minimum that you should be going for. If you're a little bit above that, that's fine. I probably wouldn't go any higher than the ability to do like a 236. So what's 360 times 2?
For 520.
Yeah, no.
720.
That'd be like 720. Is that it?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So I would not go above the ability to do like a 720. So you can go on the training range and mess around with that, using that as like your baseline, and then that is your high up, and then that's going to be drastically different from from 13 360s, right? um,
Oh, good. So I actually put it up higher specifically when I played Winston, and I put it higher for all characters, which was the problem there, because I've set sensitivity different for certain characters
Yeah,
as well.
you can. A tip personally, I use every character in the game the same sensitivity. Like, and I play like I have played tanks, and I have played pretty much everything. I have enough playtime and everything, and I use just the same sensitivity. I find it's the easiest to manage. It means my muscle memory stays the same on everything. Now, if you want to have a slightly higher sensitivity on like Winston, that's fine because Winston doesn't require as mechanical skill. But
That's
I would
exactly the reason why, yeah.
but I still would say that you're going to have problems that come along with having too high of a sensitivity. Like your screen will be jittery. It'll be hard to tell what's going on. It'll give you lack of awareness, and it also make turning difficult if you're struggling to stop from turning too far. That also, just medically wise, that also can lead to carpal tunnel developing in you if you have too low of sensitivity and you play
I have enough
constantly.
problems as it is. I have enough problems with my body
Yeah.
as it is. Let's not add another one.
Yeah, so lots of reasons why I'd probably recommend lowering it. So that's something to mess around with. Now we're running out of time here, so why don't we hop into the end of the session? So we're gonna go over the main points, do a quick review, and then wrap up from there. So we went over what characters we were on. We're on Zenyatta, and then we were very briefly on Brig. So Zenyatta, orb wise, pretty much the big thing is apply, or like Discord, apply it on whoever you're shooting at, and apply it while you're shooting at them, right? Just remembering that we can apply
Yeah.
orbs while we're shooting, right? And then heal orbs. I think you did pretty fine on like. I think that, of course, it wasn't perfect, but I think we did pretty fine in knowing when and who to be having it on. Maybe I'd say there's a little too much of orbing, if anything. Oh, excuse me. Where sometimes we just kind of overorb, where we'd go swap, 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 right? When we probably just want to leave it on something unless it's needed somewhere else. That way we have more time to be shooting. But besides that, I'd say the other thing is just efficient, like knowing that you can keep shooting and being more efficient with it, being faster with it. Overall, though, orb usage probably goes like a low to medium priority for you to work on. Now Brig, you see, Brig, we talked about whip shotting off a cooldown, get Inspire going. Health packs, make sure that we're not over healing and healing people when they're already full HP. And then additionally, make sure we're not coming into fights with 0 health packs, right? Make sure that we're trying to have 2 to 3 if possible. And then those are the main things with that. Bash, we also, I don't think, used Bash at all too, so make sure we're just using our
Yeah,
ability slightly more often. Right. Overall, that Brig probably went up to like a medium priority for her ability usage. Then ult usage, Brig, we didn't actually see any ults. Trance, make sure not ulting in between. If you've won or lost the fight, don't use trance, right? Don't use ults. And then additionally, make sure that when we're using trance, we're thinking through the criteria of, do people actually need healing? Are they in danger? And then is it multiple people, right? And then that way we actually get some decent trances in there. Besides that, I think we only saw like 2 trances in total, so not too bad with that. Overall, probably say it goes to like a low to medium priority for you to work on. Moving on, positioning. Positioning is making sure that you have cover usage, right? Good positioning is usage of cover. Bad positioning is absence of cover. Make sure we're taking high grounds. High ground positioning is great. Make sure we're taking off angles. This is going to allow you to shoot at the things you want to shoot at. Also, I'm just realizing I skipped one here, but a category, but it's fine. We'll go wrap around and go back to it. But positioning, right? Let's see. Was there anything else we discussed? Maybe sometimes we're lagging a little far behind our team. So like we just would go into a fight and like our team would be like up here on the corner and we'd be back here, right? Make sure that we're up there with them, so that we're able to do things. Overall positioning probably went to like a medium priority for you to work on. Then moving on, let's see. We skipped over mechanics. So mechanics is on Zenyatta. Left click is great. Look to left click whenever possible. Right click is I think you generally knew when to right click. Is just sometimes we'd overly right click. Like we would sit here and instead of just going left click, we would back around the corner, charge right click, and then go. And then we back up again, charge right click, and then go, which is just like less efficient damage wise. So you'd want to instead just sit here and just go left click, left click, left click if you have the ability to. Now, if you're being heavily pressured, then right click is fine, right? But then let's see what else is there in this. Constantly be shooting, actions per minute, do more things. Target priority, shoot at the easy things to kill, which is probably not tanks. And then besides, you can shoot at the hard things to kill if you have opportunities. They're low, out of position, or they're the only thing you can shoot at. And then that gets into off-angling of using off-angles to actively shoot at the things you want to shoot at. Also crosshair placement, aim where you know people are going to be, right? Aim at head level, and then pre-aim at where you know people are going to be at, so that when they come around that corner, you're able to actually just pop them in the head very easily, right? Then also just sometimes reloading. Don't reload when you can be shooting at stuff, and then do reload when you can't be shooting at stuff. Overall mechanics probably went for like a medium high priority for you to work on. And then also just remembering that you can warm up and try your free-for-all. And then finally we have awareness, paying attention to your environment. This gets into making sure that you're paying attention to kill feed. Kill feed is going to tell you whether or not you've won or lost the fight. 1 to 2 is an advantage or disadvantage, and you play aggressive or passive. 2 to 3 is a won or lost fight. Play really aggressive or back out or let them kill you if you cannot get out. Then also no ults in those scenarios when you've won or lost a fight. Then besides that, pay attention to health bars of your teammates and their danger levels. So when should I be trancing? Paying attention to where's the enemy team at? Paying attention to our audio awareness. And then also since we may have a little bit of a problem with that, heavily relying on our visual awareness, right? Rather than just kind of slowly walking around doing like a slow pan here. We want to be looking left, right, 360, right? Knowing what's going on around us so that we can actually have awareness of what's happening over the fight. And then that probably goes to like a maybe like a medium priority for you to work on, and then that's about it. So to put that in order real quick, number 1 is going to be your mechanics. Number 2 is going to be your positioning. Number 3 is going to be your awareness. 4 is going to be probably your ability usage, and then number 5 is going to be your transcendence usage. Your ultimate usage. And then Brig, just note that her ability usage was slightly higher on the list than Zenyatta's was.
Yeah.
And then that's about it. Do you have any questions about anything that we've discussed?
Not particularly. I believe that, and this might sound like a little bit of a wounded ego moment, but I do believe, and all the criticism is valid, and it's 100% correct. I do believe I picked a game where I performed particularly poorly as opposed to average, which is something that I'm thinking. But that might also be a wounded ego, so I'm just going to take it all into account anyway.
Yeah. Well, if you do feel that's the way, like if you come back for future sessions, wait, how many did you order? You ordered just
I did order 2.
Okay, yeah. So for the next one, if you do feel like that's the case, look for one that's more like average, because I don't want to be calling out things that you know are wrong, right? And where you know that you messed up.
What I'm saying. I did perform this bad in a game, so it warrants me working on all those points so that I become more consistent.
But yeah, exactly. But you also like if it's a game where you play below average, those aren't going to be mistakes that you make on a regular basis. So typically, just average gameplay is the best because it means that you'll be making those. We'll go over mistakes that you make consistently most of the time, rather than like let's say one of the things you talked about you only ever make once in a great while, right? So that's just for next time, if you have the chance, pull up something that's average. Yeah. So
that is also very good.
All right. So one last thing before we end, because we're running out of time or overtime here, but it's fine. I'll add it in just because I want to make sure that I go over this like every time I go over something with someone. So just every first session needs to have this, and that is how do you actually apply the things we worked on You apply the things we worked on by making sure that you're actively focusing on your gameplay, right? That means that you're not going to just autopilot, you're not going to play, and contrary to popular belief, you're not just going to purely play to win, as when you do that, you just kind of stagnate, whereas when you play to improve, you end up actually winning. Now, what that looks like within your gameplay is that you're going to pick out something. So we said mechanics. So we're going to pick out mechanics, and we're going to think in our heads, mechanics, right? And we give ourselves a constant reminder to be thinking about our shooting and our mechanics. When we do that, our mechanics are going to be looking a lot more solid because we're putting a lot more effort into them. And then when you do that for a long enough period of time, it forms them as a positive habit. Once you form it as a positive habit, you no longer need to focus on it nearly as much, and then you can move on to something else. Don't try to focus on everything all at once. That will become overwhelming. Pick one category or 1 to 3 smaller things to work on, right? So that's just the improvement process that applies to Overwatch, and then also a lot of other things as well, even IRL. So that's just making sure that you're actively focusing while you're playing. That all makes sense? Yeah?
Yeah.
Alrighty, so I stopped